Hey, this is Tyler for BleepinJeep.com. Today I want to show you how to make your own vacuum axle disconnect lockout kit for about $5. I wanted to do this in one video, but it just turned out too long, so we're going to split it into two parts. The first part I'm going to show you how to get it out, how to disassemble the vacuum pump, and what you need to keep. In the second video I'll show you how to put it all back together and stick it back in the axle. And you can do it all in about an afternoon. Now, this is not as strong of a solution as the one-piece axle conversion that Matt shows you in another video. But if you don't want to drop out your carrier, mess with the seal, and do all that stuff, this is one way you can get your four-wheel drive back and get a little bit of reliability out of that front axle until you're ready to do the conversion. And hey, this piece right here is all you got to buy, and it was about $3. So come with me and I'll show you how to do it. Alright, so you just saw me jack up the front. I did that for two reasons. I'm actually going to get after this from the driver or the passenger side wheel well rather than on my back underneath. You can do it either way. If you do jack this up and you crawl under it, then of course use jack stands. Never trust your jack. But the other reason I did this, not just to get the wheel off, but it's going to make the gear oil run down to that side into the pumpkin, and I should lose a minimum amount of fluid this way. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this wheel off and see if I can get to it. First thing I'm going to do is disconnect these vacuum lines, and they go into some metal lines here. Just going to pull that whole assembly off. We'll worry about capping these in a minute. So hopefully we won't lose too much fluid out of here. Now, inside here there's three E-clips that hold this stuff all together on the shaft. So we're going to go ahead and pull those out. Now, it's kind of a smart idea to put a rag in this when you do this so that they don't fling out and catch you in the face. Make sure you're wearing safety glasses when you're doing this. There. E-clip. So we'll set that one aside. That will allow this to get out of the way so we can get this other one off. Okay, now you will notice you'll either notice now or you'll notice eventually, like I did when I tried to reinstall this, but these two E-clips are actually different sizes. They are not the same size. So the bigger of the two is going to go to the inside. The smaller one is going to go to the outside. And the grooves cutting this shaft are at different depths, so you can push all day on that little one and it will not go into that groove. Ask me how I know. Okay, there's one more that's going to allow us to pull this right out of the housing. That's this big one right here. This one you might actually be able to get to with a flathead. Just like that. Okay. See how big that one is? That's real easy to remember where that one goes. So now we should be able to pull this out of the housing and then pull our fork out.
Now you want to inspect these forks. Sometimes they have a tendency to crack down here. So you just want to do a quick visual inspection and make sure that it's not cracked or anything before you go putting it back in. Make sure these pads are in decent shape. These ones look real good. Okay, the next step we're going to do, we're going to reuse this shaft right here that the shift fork rides on. So we need to remove it from this diaphragm assembly here. And when we get it apart here, we'll show you. You can't just yank this out because there's a big metal, couple of big metal washers in there. So the easiest way I found to get this out is I just grind off this lip right here on my grinder, and then this assembly comes apart and you pull it right out. So we'll go do that. Okay, so I've ground this down, and I didn't grind it all the way through. I mean, I guess you could sit there and grind it all the way through, but I'm just wanting to thin this up enough that when I come and hit this with a screwdriver, it bends over really easy. Just makes your life easier. Now, we're not going to reuse this part here, so I'm going to go ahead and stick that in the vise. And then I'm going to grab my screwdriver. Grab that screwdriver. And then just bend this off, and with it ground down like that, it bends pretty easy. Just like that. Chuck that in the garbage. Okay, now you can see how this shaft that we got to reuse, it's been press fit onto these two washers and this diaphragm. So now we can just push the assembly apart like this and pull it out. Now if you look right here, this little seal, there's also an O-ring inside here. Those wear out. You can see the amount of oil that's in here. I mean, and I squirted out a bunch when I cycled the diaphragm. Essentially what happened is these seals didn't do their job, and enough oil got past them that it filled up this side of the diaphragm, so it would disengage the four-wheel drive, but when I would try to shift it back into four-wheel drive, this essentially hydrolocked on this side, and that little crappy vacuum pressure that the engine provides was not enough to force all this oil and gook out past these seals, and so the diaphragm could not cycle and could not shift it into four-wheel drive. So not going to have that problem anymore. Okay, we're back over at the bench grinder, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to grind that button off, and these will come right off, and it'll save our shaft from getting damaged. That should be enough to do it. Yep. There we go. So we're going to reuse this shaft right here.
Alright, that does it for part one. So we've got our shift fork assembly completely disassembled. These are the parts that we're going to need for part two. Again, the shift fork, the housing, the post that the shift fork rides on, and the two smaller of the E-clips. This is the only additional piece that we're going to need, and in part two I'll give you the part number and everything and what to get. This is I believe a propane fitting. So if you'll join me in part two, we'll start putting this thing together and get it back in the Jeep.